Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Honorable Ministers, Dr. Ishrat, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum. First of all, thank you, Yunus Daga Saab and your team at Policy Research and Advisory Council. Big thanks to Asfar and your team at Nutshell for organizing this event, for bringing us together. And thanks to all the organizers and sponsors for making this happen. Thank you all. I'm sure the theme of course correction has been touched upon many times in the past in our country, but it is never too late to discuss any developing nation's economic reset. In our case, after last few years of economic slowdown and negative sentiment, Pakistan is beginning to see a faint twilight. There are early signs of stabilization, as shared by the Finance Minister. There's a cautious return of confidence, and the sense that the worst has passed is already there. And that's why, once again, I believe this is the right time to talk about course correction and economic reset. Now, any economic reset requires reforms. And reform is not just a narrative. Reform has to be a mindset. Reform has to be a mindset. Reform has to be a passion. And fortunately, this time, I don't know about the past, but because we have not been able to achieve economic reset in the past, so I would like to say, unlike the past, this time the primary focus of discussions at the policy level as well as the society level is how to reform most aspects of our economy. And I think that push from the society, from the academia, from the business community and policymakers, I think it will all converge towards helping us achieve the economic reset. A lot has already been talked about by the Finance Minister, by Dr. Ishrat on the macro and micro indicators, so I would not touch upon those. However, I would like to touch upon four structural themes which I believe are important to achieve the course correction. But I think at the outset, first we need to realize that Pakistan's challenge has never been a lack of potential. I don't think our challenge has been a lack of potential. It has been the way our economy mobilizes or fails to mobilize its people, its capital, and its enterprises. I think that's where the challenge lies. We have built a system on various pillars. However, there are four major weaknesses, and these are the four weaknesses I want to talk about today. Our public resources are stretched thin. Too much economic activity remains informal. Too much capital remains either idle or speculative. And capable citizens, especially women, remain out of the workforce. And the result has been a fragile growth model, one that consumes more than it produces, one that imports more than it exports, and we have repeatedly run into balance of payment stresses in the past, primarily because our own structures are weak. Now, we can either continue to focus at the tactical level, or we step back and focus on the policy and strategy level. I believe focusing on these structural reforms, which are all at the policy and structural level, can help us achieve the course correction. Let me share a bit about these four reforms. For too long, as government, we have tried to do too much where markets could perform better. We have tried to run airlines, we have tried to run power companies, we have tried to run petroleum and gas companies, we have tried to run railways, we have tried to run factories, while at the same time doing too little where only the government can succeed, building human capital, enforcing competition, and providing a predictable policy environment. Now, the cost has been too high of this strategy that we have followed in the past. We have led our economy towards fiscal strain. We have eroded asset values. We have discouraged private investment. And we have an economy that struggles to generate high-quality jobs. This is where we are today. Any modern economic reset will begin with a simple but a powerful shift. As a state, we must move from being an operator to becoming an enabler. I think that's the mindset shift that we need. Strong economies are not those where governments own the most. No. Strong economies are not those where the governments own the most. Strong economies are those where institutions work, where markets allocate capital efficiently, and rules are stable for investors to take long-term risks. And this is where my current job, the privatization program, fits into the larger picture. Privatization is not an ideological project, and it is not about selling the family silver. It is not. It is a mechanism for correcting distortions created by prolonged state ownership. It introduces market discipline where administrative control has already proven to have failed, and it frees scarce public capital for education, for health, and for social protection. But then, no economy and no country has ever reset its economy through asset sales alone. So we need to do a lot more. A sustainable recovery requires a deeper transformation from a consumption-driven economy to one based on savings, on investments, and exports. We must begin to produce more than we consume, and this requires credit to flow into productive enterprises. Domestic savings must rise so that investment can grow without permanent dependence on external borrowing. For decades, we have relied on trading and rent-seeking rather than on building competitive industries. We have a history of building industries which are based on guaranteed returns, on subsidies, on lack of competition, and on giving favors to some. We need to build competitive industries. We have protected inefficient enterprises while starving productive ones of capital. We have allowed large parts of our economy to operate in shadows, limiting access to finance for them, shrinking the tax base, and undermining fairness. We need to solve all these, but at the same time, we need to train our workforce and invest in human capital. Unfortunately, almost half of our human capital, our women, have remained on the margins. When women cannot fully participate in the workforce, wages are bound to be high. Households will save less, and the economy as a whole is less resilient. If you look at any modern growth story, no modern growth story, unless they have natural endowment, no modern growth story has been written without the participation of women in the workforce. It just has not happened. And above all, none of this will endure without institutions that command trust. Investors do not seek favors. They seek rules that last. They need regulators who are professional. They need tax systems that are predictable, and they need courts that enforce contracts. So, now, like any reset and reform agenda, our list of tasks will be long, but we need to start somewhere. And we need to focus on few critical areas. What should be those areas? We need to focus on areas which will have a multiplier effect and which will work like a flywheel, so that those actions on their own consistently and automatically apply effort in the direction of reform, building momentum over time through small and cumulative wins, and eventually leading to a sustainable model of growth and prosperity. So we need actions which have a multiplier effect, and we need actions which will have a flywheel effect. So taking advantage of today's event and the theme, I would like to propose these 4 areas that I just talked about, which can create the flywheel effect for our economy, and let's call it RISE. I don't like acronyms in speeches, but I think it just happened that we were able to come up with this one, and it fits into the theme RISE. Now, what is this RISE? R is for realizing women's economic potential. I is for integrating the informal economy. S is for shifting from trading to manufacturing, and E is for enabling markets. Why? Again, why these 4? Because when you realize women's economic potential, it will give the society a voice. It will make the society productive. It will reduce wages. It will help us control the population, which we have all realized that is something that needs to be focused on. It will help us increase education level and the skill level in the society. It will have a multiplier effect. Why integrate the informal economy? We keep talking about tax, but I think we need to step back and change the lens. When you focus on integrating the informal economy, the economy will get documented. It will help us reduce corruption in the society. It will automatically lead to broader tax base. When the tax base is broadened, the tax rate can come down. That will help us achieve industrial growth. Why shifting from trading to manufacturing? We have a large talent pool in the country. Every year we are adding 4 to 5 million people in this country. We need to provide them with jobs. You can't do it with services alone. Only manufacturing can do it. And when you shift from trading to manufacturing, it will help us get more engineers, more scientists, more technology people, improve the talent pool in the country, improve their skill level, and provide the workforce which is needed by the industry to grow. Why enable markets? Because unless we provide the level playing field, unless we take the decision-making away from individuals and give it to the market forces, unless the demand and supply will determine the price, we will not be able to achieve growth. We will not be able to achieve a higher tax base. We will not be able to achieve productivity, and unless we enable markets, we will not be able to achieve a merit-based society. And we will continue to be a society where favors and relationships decide the progression of people. We cannot continue to do that. So, ladies and gentlemen, if we get these 4 things right, I believe we will not merely stabilize, we will inshallah rise, and we will inshallah grow. Thank you.